Welcome, everyone. This is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast, coming to you from my little wood shop in the backyard at DTM Enterprises. Go to dtmww.net. I got a little handyman woodworking business here locally in the Louisville metropolitan area. If you need anything like that, please contact me. The music around this podcast is brought to you by Darren Frank. He has written that music. Our friend Jesse has helped produce it. And I think it's neat that we have people in the program putting the music around this thing. Another added benefit, keep Darren in your prayers as he continues his physical rehabilitation. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery is a book by James Christopher Cone. It can be found on Amazon. It is a magnum opus kind of style of the 12 steps. A big book with a lot more of the actual mechanics of the steps and some of the psychological background behind them. It's geared up for anybody, not just people who fit traditional 12-step programs. We've found it this way of life. This 12-step program will work for anybody. And if you're looking for some maybe some guidelines on how to be a little more, how to have a little bit more happiness in your life, as you take this trip on this big blue marble, you might check that out. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery, James Christopher Cone on Amazon. And spiritualunderground.org is my little website where I post pictures and show notes and links to the podcast also. And just as a side, Anchor FM is who hosts this podcast, and it's also can be found on all the major podcast platforms: Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Pandora. Quite a few, 10 or 12 different platforms. So if you're not finding it, you can send me a note and I can help you with that. So today we have a guest, and I love these deals where I meet somebody at the driveway. That's happened again. I didn't know Angela. Timara, I believe, is who recommended. And just to be completely frank, I've had a lot of male guests. I'm trying to balance the gender gap I have going on in here. And main thing is the reason for that was because I'm in a men's home group, and those are the guys I had on here to begin with. But now we're branching out and getting some more people on here. And like I said, I get to have a new friend every time somebody comes in the studio. So I like that little collateral benefit portion of what I get to receive as a gift of having these guests that I haven't met before in the studio. Plus I get to hear a story I don't know. Frankly, these people I know their stories, so I sit here and I listen to something I've heard before, and this is all new news to me. So I like that. How you doing tonight, Angela?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Old rainy Wednesday night, and yards flooded, and it's been dreary for a few days. Kind of getting me down a little bit. I'm usually not weather affected.
I am with rain.
Are you?
And snow.
And
cold.
Snow and cold?
Anything but spring and summer affects me.
I usually am not, but I've noticed here this year I've been a little bit more affected by the dreariness.
Seems like we've had more rain than winter this winter.
It does seem like that.
Yeah.
Somebody else said at least this isn't snow.
That's very true. It'd be a lot of snow.
It could be. Yeah. So we start out here on sobriety date, usually just to give a anchor point to where a person is at. I know a lot of times, I do believe quality of recovery is bigger than quantity.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I like to do that because it's an important date in my life.
Yep, mine is December 13th, 2004.
2004. So if I do my real quick, my calculator ain't working. That's 15 years. 15 years.
Yeah, be 16
coming up
this
on 16
December,
years.
yeah.
Well, cool. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
That is, I love I have had people in here with I like to get guys in here right after they've celebrated one year. I've had a sponsee that was in here one day on his 365 day.
That's cool. Yeah.
And that's fun. But I also like the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience, strength, and hope that comes from people who have been walking this path for a while.
Yeah.
My January was my 5 years.
Cool. Congratulations.
I bounced around. Thank you. For about 4 years prior to that.
Yeah.
I always say bouncing off the halls and walls of AA and,
Right.
and not really doing the deal and trying to find some other way how I could do some half measures and
Try
get
to
full
manage
results.
it some other way.
And that was me.
Oh, it's like I know I turned that thing off.
I usually turn these. I always usually had to have one notification ding, I guess, before I realized that I need to turn that thing off. Interesting. my machine here doesn't tell me who the text is from, so I read it and I'm trying to interpret who that one was, who that one was. Yeah. So one of the things, I've had some guests in here, and I've kind of guided them at some level to tell their story chronologically, and there was a couple people that I think that would have been better off to just let them talk about what they wanted to talk about. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to you. Well, a lot of times people I think it's important to talk about some of our family system stuff, because I see a parallel there. A lot of times in
you'll definitely see my parallel.
Yeah, older speaker tapes a lot of times will kind of seem to start like when somebody started drinking. Mm-hmm. And I know for a fact that I had some isms and had some things going on inside of me way before I took my first drink.
Yeah,
me
too.
I didn't see that until I worked steps and did some things to peel that onion back and see inside of there. I would have told you some of that was not true at one point.
Right.
And or it didn't bother me anymore.
Right.
That's another one. Yeah, that don't bother me anymore.
I wasn't selfish, no.
Yeah. So
that's when I would have told anybody. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't hurting anybody but myself.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's another good one. I'm not hurting anybody but myself.
That was my biggest lie.
Yeah. So did you grow up around here?
I did. I grew up in Jeffersonville, half Jeffersonville, half Clarksville.
Yeah, that's a blurry line.
My whole life. Yeah.
I'm not sure where that one starts and where the other one ends.
Yeah,
and I've lived here all my life.
They're one because they pretty much are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up. Most of my life was spent in Jeff. Grew up alongside the railroad tracks that run down 10th Street by White Castle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I actually grew up in AA. My parents both got sober in 1989.
Oh wow.
So I was 7 or 8 when they made it to the rooms. I don't remember their drinking. I just remember one fight when I was really young, and I remember my dad throwing stuff against the wall. I remember Mom crying in the kitchen. I remember my dad leaving over some milk. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, that's stereotypical.
Right. And then I remember moving a lot even after they got sober. I've heard a lot of guys say that they were too busy being in AA to be a father, even once they got sober. Mm-hmm. A lot of old timers especially, and that was my dad.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. He spent a lot of time. He was actually on the board at the Jeff Token Club and at Serenity House, the men's halfway house here in Clarksville. And he was just real involved, which kept him sober. And but I was kind of a latchkey kid. My mom, she was also in the program. She went to school a lot. She had to work, of course. My dad didn't work. He was on disability from when I was really young for hurting his back. But my dad was gone to AA stuff. My mom was gone to school. So it was just me and my twin brother a lot. And then we had a little brother about 10 years later.
Oh, really? So you have a twin brother?
I do. And I can't vouch for what he is, but he shows a lot of the same signs I did 15 years ago. And I pray every day for him. My little brother, he's a normal drinker. He can go drink one drink and take it or leave it.
Really?
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Leaving a drink behind makes no sense to me, even now. But I don't, I do remember always feeling like I wasn't good enough, even as a small kid. I was embarrassed of the fact that my parents were in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know what that was about. I still don't know what that was about. Maybe I knew even as a child I was supposed to be here. But I do know that bothered me a lot. I didn't like telling my friends that my parents were at meetings. I just don't know why, but I was embarrassed of it.
Well, there's a stigma attached to it. And I think it's lessening, I believe. I feel, anyway. Maybe that's a little bit because I'm here.
Yeah.
But it does seem like it's less of a stigma today than what it was. And
my kids will tell anybody.
A lot. Yeah.
They don't care. They're proud.
Yeah.
Especially when they were younger. They would tell anybody who'd listen their mom's sober. They told many police officers. But, I grew up, my twin brother, he was the smart one. He was very smart in school. He wasn't athletic, but neither was I. He would always seem to be the kid that my parents favored more. I know that was a perception problem on my part. My parents never favored one of us more than the other. He was just a boy. He liked to go fishing. I did not. With my daddy, and my mom was always gone. So I felt kind of like I didn't live up to whatever I needed to. I remember going to a retreat at Mount St. Francis, which is like a spiritual retreat place up in, I think, Greenville or
Floyd
Georgetown.
Knobs or
Yeah. And I remember going there as a kid. It was some Alcoholics Anonymous thing, and they described what a black sheep of the family was. And I identified with that, which I never was like a big troublemaker. I don't know why I identified with that.
Yeah.
But that stuck with me. I remember that even, and it's been 30 years ago. So I kind of had that was my niche or whatever in my family. I was the bad one, even though I never got in trouble. Don't know. I don't remember how old I was first time I took a drink. I think I was around 11, 12 maybe.
Yeah.
I was a tomboy, so I hung out with my brother and his friends growing up. It was never me and girlfriends. I had one girlfriend that was really close to me, Tiffany, and but as we got older in our younger teenage years, it was me and my brother and his friends. And it was after we started hanging out with these group of friends that I took my first drink. I snuck out of the house about midnight. I would kill my children if they did this stuff. So don't listen. I snuck out of the house in the middle of the night and went up to Charlestown with some friends of my brother's and got super, super drunk on this drink called Aftershock. It was like a cinnamon something, or I can still taste it. I can't eat Red Hots today because it... But
yeah, them sugary liquors.
Yeah, it was the one that had the cinnamon crystals growing at the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never drank it again. But I got super drunk, and I crawled back in the window, and that's kind of how it went for about 10 years. But that was my first time drinking. I don't believe I drank again I don't remember anyways, for quite some time. But I do know that we started smoking cigarettes and hanging out on the railroad tracks and stealing candy from the little gas station across the street and doing that good old juvenile delinquent stuff.
Yep.
And then I remember my brother and his friends huffing gas once on the railroad tracks, and that didn't appease me at all. But
yeah, me either. I tried that, and that wasn't
I've
my
hated
deal.
the smell of gas since I was little. Some people love it. I didn't know. But then marijuana came in the picture. And then drinking, and this was probably somewhere between 14 or 15, that those of us kids that all hung out together. My house was kind of the hangout, and my parents were in Alcoholics Anonymous. How funny is that?
Yeah.
But they were gone every evening. You know, they would be gone for meetings, so they would leave about 6 or 7 at night, and they wouldn't be home till 9:30 or 10.
Yep.
That's the prime time for teenagers to get in trouble.
Right.
Plus, we were allowed to smoke, and that made our parents the cool parents. So we'd hang out there. Of course, there was no alcohol at my house because my parents were sober. So we had a place that we hid it behind our house in this little shed, kind of like where we're at now. We hid it down in this little cinder block mud pile that we had made to keep it cold when it was cold outside. And we would grab that usually after school. I was too much of a chicken to drink before school.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I smoked dope at school.
Yeah, I would do that,
but not
couldn't drink. I was scared you'd smell it or whatever. And my dad, he was real involved with the Token Club and the Serenity House, so he threatened us all the time. He had one of those that was when those drug tests first came out.
Oh, really?
Drug alert or whatever they were called. He put one on top of the refrigerator, and he got these little alcohol spit sticks from Serenity House. And he's like, if I think either one of you were using or drinking, I'm going to test you right on the spot. He never said what he would do if we got caught doing it, but he never ever used any of them.
Huh.
But I always know that I had that feeling where I wasn't enough. But that changed when I was drinking. I mean, I can remember that like it was yesterday. And I chased that feeling for 10 years. That feeling that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't complete. I know now that it's a God-sized hole that nothing's going to fill but God. But I surely tried to fill it with everything but. At 15, like I said, I had this whole scapegoat, black sheep thing in the family. I had met at 12.
Kind of set that up and then live towards it.
Yes, I had goals at that point, I guess. But my brother had acquired a new best friend. He was the neighborhood bad boy. He was the one that your parents hate. So, of course, I fell madly in love with him at 12. I knew so much. But him and I were together for a very long time. And at 15, I got pregnant. I knew at 15 that this baby was going to fill that hole that I had inside of me. This baby was going to make everything better. It was going to make me a better person. I wouldn't be this crappy person that I feel like I am inside. And at this point, I had stole some candy or a few little things, but I wasn't a bad kid. You know, I did get good grades. I did want to please my parents. I wasn't out, doing bad crimes or whatever, but I did think this baby was going to make it all better. Their dad also, he is sober today, and he suffers from the same disease that we do.
But sober.
But sober today. He's got, I think, 3 years now.
Oh, good.
But I found out very quickly after that child was born that babies take a lot more love than they give. And so then I had to adapt to another lifestyle. I wanted everybody to think that I was this good teenage mom, and there was a commercial that played back in the late 90s. Because teenage pregnancy got really bad in the late 90s. It was right before that Teen Mom show came out, I think. But they had a commercial on of a teenage mom with a baby on her hip flipping hamburgers. And I don't know why that commercial pissed me off something terrible. I'm like, that will never be me. So I wasn't going to, my parents were super awesome. Having this kid, they let me stay at home. They said, all you got to do is finish school and go to college. You can stay here as long as you need to. We'll help you do whatever you need to do. Most parents weren't like that back then, especially. And but I had a very healthy, perfect baby boy. I did not drink or use during any of my pregnancy because I did want to be a good mom. I didn't want to hurt my baby.
Yeah, and back in that point, probably the disease hadn't progressed, and
it really had. I don't think I crossed that line.
For sufficient reason, you can stop or moderate.
Yeah, I remember once my dad getting mad at me because I couldn't quit smoking cigarettes, but they made me so sick, and I got caught one time smoking by my dad, and he just happened to be with the kid's father at that time. He went somewhere with him, and I got caught smoking, and that was the end of that. So, but he was healthy. Thank God, because I was only 15, It was kind of normal that next year. I don't remember. I remember feeling resentments towards him very early. So the way I was going to fix that was I got pregnant again. At 16, I got pregnant with my daughter.
Wow.
And this one I hid from my parents because they had told me before, if I got pregnant again before I graduated, they were going to send me to a maternity house and make me give the child up for adoption and all this stuff. And, of course, they did not. So I hid my pregnancy for about 6 months before I told my parents. And then they finally asked me. I came home I had actually gotten myself on the pregnancy insurance, and I had done a lot of things for myself. Just didn't tell my parents about it. I forged their signatures on stuff. And,
that caused you to grow up really fast.
It didn't really. It should have, but it didn't. I mean, it did for a temporary bit while I knew what I needed to do to take care of my child while I was carrying it.
Right.
Unfortunately, they paid for that later. But I had a healthy baby girl right before I turned 17. And 2 babies take even more care than one. Blew my mind. And I surely didn't fill that hole up with these 2 babies that were screaming and crying. At this point, I started to live 2 different lives, like Jekyll and Hyde. During the week, I went to school. I went to work at White Castle. After school, I took care of my kids. In between those times, I put my kids to bed every night. I went to Jeffersonville High School here in Indiana. And I was fortunate enough that I went to high school that had a daycare for teenage moms, and that my kids went to school with me. I did graduate with decent grades. I don't know. They gave me my diploma. They can't take it back. So, whatever. But I worked through the week. And then Friday, ever since my kids were babies, their dad's dad, their grandpa, we call him Big David. He would get them every Friday evening, and I wouldn't have to pick them up till Sunday. That was his way of letting me and their dad be kids, do what we needed to do. Unfortunately, I couldn't do what I wanted to do through the week. I had to be the mom and the student and the responsible one. And I started getting real resentful towards their dad because he got to run around and smoke weed and drink and do all the fun stuff you do as teenagers, I guess. And I couldn't.
Right.
So the resentment course, I didn't know that then, but now I know that those resentments towards him and my children were growing every day. And that's kind of the life I led until I graduated high school, went straight from high school into nursing school. I worked third shift at a treatment center. That's still funny when I think about it. At Turning Point Center is where I worked.
Yeah.
And
I'm familiar with Turning
worked all
Point.
night
I was
as
there
a
just not long ago.
yeah, worked there as a tech on third shift, and it was a really great job. I mean, I could study at night for my nursing school and all that. And
Yeah, pretty calm at night.
yeah, and then go to school during the day. I only slept maybe 4 or 5 hours a day because I would have to go to work, go to school, pick the kids up, take them to daycare, pick them up from daycare, rest for a couple hours, go back to work, and do it again Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
So, of course, I still kept dropping them off on Friday nights to their grandfather, and off I went. You know, it was a goal of mine every weekend to set out to get as drunk as I could, as fast as I could, and stay that way till Sunday, early Sunday morning. Then I would sober up before I had to go pick them back up again. We would rent hotel rooms and just party or whatever we wanted to do because we didn't have our kids. And I justified that because
I had completely forgot about that thing of going and renting hotel rooms so you could party. I had that
had to
completely
when you're young.
slipped my mind. Yeah.
right.
Because there used to be these little dive hotels around, and I think there's still some, but there used to be a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I
These
could
little
name the
drive-up
ones.
motels.
Yeah. Me and my brother and my...
They didn't really ask any questions if you had the money.
No. And at least one of us was 18, so somebody could rent it, and we just partied, and they really didn't care.
Yep.
As long as you paid your
I
money.
had completely forgotten about that.
Yep, we took full advantage of that. Yeah, there used to be a whole bunch down 10th Street. They've shut down a lot of them, thank goodness.
Yeah.
They just tore a big one down in Clarksville that caused all kinds of trouble through the years. But, so that's kind of how I lived. I graduated nursing school
Where'd you
when
go?
I was 20. I went to Ivy Tech.
Did you?
Yeah.
My
I got
mom
my
was the
LPN.
director of nursing there for a long, 30 years.
Who was it?
Her name is Donna Reeves.
Oh, I love her.
Do you know her?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my mom.
That's cool. Yeah, I had her.
Did you? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
she's
a lot
great.
of nurses in this area that have been impacted by my mother.
Oh, yeah, definitely. She's a great lady.
Well, thank you. That's cool. That's a cool little connection.
Yeah. But yeah, I graduated from there. I didn't get the greatest grades. I was, we used to have a saying, C equals nurse. And I'd much rather want a C student taking care of me than an A student because the common sense is, more on the C range. That was just how I justified it anyway. But I was tired all the time. I don't know how I made it through nursing school. But again, I graduated, passed my boards, and they can't take it back. So, but I did that. I went from making, minimum wage with 2 kids living at home with mom and dad. And then I went straight, to making really good money for a 19-year-old, 20-year-old. And I got my first apartment. At this point, I left their father also in this same 2-month period. I graduated nursing school, got my own apartment, left their dad. We'd been together since I was about 12. I hated him at the point that I left him. Hated him. Because he got to run around and do everything that I wanted to do, and I couldn't. I couldn't tell him that's why I hated him. I told him I hated him for doing those things, but in reality, I hated him because I was jealous because I wanted to do those things, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I got this apartment and left their dad, and I got fired from Turning Point for dating a patient. It didn't last long anyway, but got fired for dating a patient.
Who'd have thought that was outside the rules?
Right. Ethics, what? So that didn't last long anyway. So in this time period, I did have my kids. I believe right in this is where I crossed that line that the big book talks about, where it went from drinking to wanting to have fun or whatever to fit in to an absolute necessity, where I couldn't get out of bed without to drink alcohol. I ended up losing that apartment at one point, moved back home with mom and dad, then got my stuff back together. At no point in this time am I thinking I'm an alcoholic or that I have a drug problem or any of that. This is just being young and being stupid. And I don't know, maybe it was. No, it's not. I'm just kidding. But I moved back home, and then within about 6 months, I moved back out, got a house for me and my kids. And that is where I crossed the line. I had just turned 21. I was allowed to pass narcotics to patients before I was old enough to drink, which was weird to me at the time. But I never tried to go into clubs until I was 21. I was afraid. I was always afraid of consequences or being in trouble or somebody thinking bad about me or something. So I never tried. I just drank at home, had somebody buy it for me, whatever. It wasn't that hard back then to find somebody to buy alcohol for you.
Yep.
So I did that. But once I was able to go into the clubs, it was all she wrote. I had a club for every night of the week. And like I said, at this point, I had my kids full time. Over about a 6-month period, I didn't have my kids at all. I went from being the full-time mom, dropping them off at school, looking real good to the outside world, that I'm this full-time single mom doing her thing, to now I'm a piece of crap who's homeless and her kids are living with their grandparents. I met a guy one night at a club. I don't know my time all that well. I just know what man I was with at that time.
Yeah.
That's my recollection time
Yeah,
frame.
I say this thing. If I knew I was going to be telling this story, I'd have kept better track.
Right. Definitely. But when I met him, and by no means is it his fault, he just, more things got introduced to me, and I was off and running.
Yeah, there's some kind of magnetic pull, some kind of, when we start going that direction, people pop into your life that facilitate that somehow
they
or
help
another,
feed it.
And I find that actually the opposite is true too. As I do this, people are popping into my life that
Good
help me do this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a, you attract what you're after.
My dad used to say, you attract what you're looking for.
Yeah, there you go.
No matter, because I've seen it 1,000 times. I'm sure you have people in the rooms that aren't really there yet to stay sober. They attract the other ones who aren't there to stay sober.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they go out together and some of them die.
Yeah, yep.
And it's sad and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and we're not really doing it all on purpose. That's like this thing of this guy coming into your life, and I can think of circumstances of the same where when I was on that track, these people came, I bumped into people who helped my disease progress.
Yeah.
It's not their fault.
Right.
I don't lay it on them, but that's the way it works somehow.
And that was him for me. I went from just drinking and smoking a little bit of weed to doing things I said I'd never do. I was also a nurse. Nurses have access to a lot of things that normal people do not for free. So I learned how to manipulate that system also.
Yeah.
Because when you're drinking the way I was and using the way I was, you have to find a way to pay for it. Why not?
Yeah, it gets expensive.
Right. I had to supplement my income. And unfortunately, it was illegal. But the statute of limitations is over. So, sorry.
So you never got caught?
No. I got caught. They just didn't turn me in. For whatever reason, God spared me that.
Right. We look back at those things where you were saved.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think the amount they would catch me, and they would just fire me. Or what? I would, do a drug test for them, be positive. I don't even know why I would volunteer to take it. Who does that? And they just wouldn't call the nursing board or police I deserve 100% to be in prison.
Yeah.
Most of us do. A lot of us do. That make it to the rooms instead of prison. But I did that for about 3 years, getting fired from different jobs for doing the same thing. By the end of 2003, I was homeless, living with the boyfriend's mom in the projects in Jeffersonville. And my kids were pretty much away from me full time. If I did have them, it was a matter of 2 or 3 hours, and I couldn't take it anymore, and I'd send them right back to either my parents or his parents. Their dad and I didn't talk anymore. We had been apart for quite some time, and we both had our highs and lows. For a while, he would do good, and he would have the kids more. For a while, I would do decent. I would never say I was doing good, but thank God for the parents that we have.
Yeah.
Because they shielded our children from a lot of stuff that they didn't have to see, that had we been in another situation or even older, they might have had to see.
Or they fall into the system.
Right. And I'm so thankful they didn't. My grandma passed away in 2003. I didn't find out till I was about 5 years sober. She died 1 year to the day of I got sober the year later. She died December 13th, 2003. I never realized that till I went to make graveside amends to her 5 years later.
Huh.
But I believe that her passing away was the start of I don't want to say my downfall, because it was never like an uphill thing.
Yeah, we all have a bottom.
It was the beginning
we
of
have
my end.
to get to that somehow or another. And
Yeah. That was the beginning of my end. When I realized that, what kind of monster are you? You know, I had managed somehow to get another house. The hot water wasn't working. The heat wasn't on. I was heating my house with the stove open when I did have my kids. I would have to call my father to bring... No, this was before we moved. Yeah, we had moved out of his mom's house because of tax money or something goofy. And then ended up back there a short time later. But I remember heating the house with my stove open and boiling water for their bath. And kids don't deserve to live that way.
Yeah.
Not in the 2000s, you know. And that was normal to my children. That's the worst part. My kids grew up thinking that was normal. They didn't have their own bedroom for years, thinking that was normal. Going to school and seeing mommies and daddies with their kids, and they don't have theirs. And
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking what we do to everybody. And don't see it.
Yep. Not
Don't see
hurting
it for
anybody
nothing.
but myself.
Exactly. So, again, thank God for their grandparents.
Yeah.
I still thank God for them every day. So, about another year of all the drama goes down. My parents had been together for 33 years. And early 2004, they divorced.
Mm.
And I took that really difficult. I don't know why. I acted like a grown baby. My dad ended up going out of town for some reason after they moved out of the home that I grew up in and moved off their separate ways. And I'm a daddy's girl since I was a baby. And I went to my dad's house and stole from him. That's how I repaid him for his heartache. I did the same thing to my mom. Of course, that's what we do. We run through the lives of the people who love us.
Yep.
And I stole from their grandparents, their dads, and they love me just like a daughter. They still do. And I just did everything to pull everybody down with me. The whole time saying I'm not hurting anybody but myself. But like I said, that following year, everything started to fall down around me. I'd lost this other house. I had no car. I had no money. I was still working as a nurse, but I had no money because it had to go to my drinking. And I basically lived out of a trash bag in his mom's apartment in the projects. And my kids were staying between my parents and his parents, and didn't have their own rooms. Didn't know when they would see their mom or their dad. And if they did get dropped off to me, it was a very short time before I'd send them back. I would have to call my dad and say, Dad, I don't have anything to feed the kids. Will you bring me some money? He got smart after a while. He wouldn't bring me money. He would bring me food to feed them.
Yeah.
But then I would call their grandpa to come pick them up so I could take the food back and get the money. Just that's what one drink does to me. It's what one drink does to this alcoholic. They would cry when they would get dropped off to me. They knew I wasn't going to keep any promise to them. And they were 5 and 6 years old by this time.
I was going to ask about how old they were.
Yeah. They were, let's see.
Yeah, if you were 16 or 17.
7 and 6 when I finally got sober. Or, yeah, around that age somewhere.
Yeah, and that's an age where, they know something's up, but they can't process that at all.
They assume it's normal and everybody lives that way.
Yeah, yeah, but they can feel something's wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they
like
would.
you said, if they're coming and they're not wanting to be there.
Yeah. They didn't like, I won't say her name, but they didn't like miss this person's house because they knew my boyfriend wasn't the nicest. Mm-hmm. He had his own children he wasn't involved with. It was just a bad situation. All around bad. It was abusive on both of our parts. And like I said, I'm just grateful my kids didn't have to see as much as I thought they remembered when I got sober. In my head, when I got sober, they remembered all this. And then when they heard me talk about 2 or 3 years sober, they had a hard time with it because they didn't remember a lot of it. They didn't know about a lot of it. But I eventually got fired from the last job that I would work before I got sober. And I had started to tell my dad a little bit about what I'd been doing. Of course, my dad is well aware of what's wrong with me. But my dad was also my biggest enabler. He almost loved me to death. And he said he would just give me whatever I needed to stop me from maybe doing something worse to get what I needed. And I knew I needed to do something different. I wasn't really sure what it was. I was not going to say I was an alcoholic. I might be an addict, but I'm not an alcoholic because that's what my parents are, and I'm not like them.
Yep.
So I ended up, I had gotten fired, but God was looking out because for whatever reason, my insurance didn't get canceled for quite some time afterwards. It carried on long enough that I got to complete outpatient rehab. I picked the furthest one away that I could find, which was Baptist East, and I didn't have a car. But my dad, luckily, was retired or on disability, and he had a little part-time job taking elderly to doctor's appointments. So he was able to take me to my rehab every day. And I'm sure he sat outside there just to make sure I didn't try to run away. But I remember...
Did you inpatient or just outpatient?
I just went outpatient. I went in for my evaluation, and I hadn't used anything that whole weekend. I don't know why. I was miserable, absolutely miserable and sick and shaking. And it could have been really dangerous trying to detox myself from the amount of alcohol that I was drinking.
Yeah.
But I did. And I remember laying there looking at my boyfriend thinking, how can he keep drinking? He knows what I'm trying to do. He's not trying to do it. He's an alcoholic just like I am. So I don't know why I would expect anything different. But I remember getting so mad at him because he was just drinking in front of my face. But, yeah, I called Baptist East on a Friday. They had me come in, did the evaluation. They said that I wasn't bad enough for inpatient. In my head, I definitely was. I wanted to be locked away somewhere.
Yeah.
I did not want to go back to the house I was at. I did not want to leave there. Because for, just a moment, you feel safe.
Right.
And it's telling this person you don't even know stuff you don't want to tell them. But for the first time in a long time, you're safe. From yourself, from the world, from whatever.
I agree. There's some,
there's a big power in just letting it go. And
take me and put me in some place for a little bit so that...
lock me away. Yeah. A friend of mine says that, back in the day, they used to lock all the alcoholics up in the loony bin.
Yeah.
And the crazy people didn't like us because we were crazier than they were. And that's how I felt. Like the craziest person on the planet. I didn't know what was wrong with me. So they sent me home, told me to come back Monday. So I laid in bed miserable all weekend, not drinking, not doing anything. My dad picked me up that Monday morning, and he drove me all the way to Baptist East. And for the first time, I realized what a piece of crap I was. Because as I'm sitting there in this room, it was probably 10 of us in this outpatient rehab. And somebody's graduating. And when you graduate, they pass around a little token, and everybody says something good about the person graduating. As I'm listening to them, I couldn't tell you his name, what he looked like, nothing. But I do remember everybody saying these nice, powerful things about him. He'd only been going there for 3 weeks. Or 6 weeks, maybe. But I remember realizing for the first time that nobody would have anything nice to say about me. Not my kids, not my dad. And I knew they loved me. I truly did. But I knew there wasn't anything good that could be said about me. And, so I finished that day. I went out to my dad's car when the day was over. It was like 6 hours long, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like different workshops and whatnot. And it was like from 9 to 3, I think.
It's pretty intensive for outpatient.
Yeah. My dad picked me up, and I remember telling him I can't leave here. I can't leave here. Because just like I did that Friday, I felt safe. I felt with people that I was comfortable with, and I didn't know them. Mm-hmm. And they didn't know me, and I was still okay with that. I didn't want to leave there. But they made me. My dad's like, you got to go home. I ain't going to keep you here. So he took me to my boyfriend's best friend's house, which lived right around the corner from where I lived with him and his mother. And I had no business going there. It wasn't to drink or to use or anything like that. My boyfriend had been calling. This was well before the time of cell phones. I mean, cell phones were around, but they weren't
not
prevalent as they are today.
2003, 2004.
Yeah. My dad had the big Nokia,
Yeah.
So my dad had one just for work purposes, or he never would have had one. So he had been blowing my dad's phone up trying to find out where I was at, because it was one of those relationships where you had to prove where you were, how you got there, how long you were there, why you were there, all that stuff. Real good, healthy relationship, So my dad, not being hip to the game of crazy people, he answered the phone finally when he called from a different number. And my dad didn't know anything different. Of course, he told him where I was at. By the time this is going down, I'm already walking around the corner back to the apartment. But I had forgot my folder from the hospital showing where I was and all my paperwork and whatever. So I turned around to go back and get it. As I'm coming back out the door, he pulls up and I'm like, oh, here we go. But I had no idea what was going to happen next. It had been an abusive relationship, but verbally. He'd not been physical with me. That's not true. He'd pushed me a few times. I'd push him. It was definitely not a one-sided abuse thing. But he came charging at me like a football player when he saw me coming out of this house. And he knocked me down. And I guess I hit a rock when I fell. And I was wearing a white sweater with a zipper down the front. And I was carrying a Mountain Dew bottle in my hand. And I remember kind of being knocked silly, like the cartoons show the little birds flying over your head. It's kind of what it felt like. And I remember trying to get up, but I couldn't get my footing. And I thought my Mountain Dew had spilled all over me because I felt wet. And then when I finally, gathered myself, I realized it was blood. You know, a head wound bleeds pretty bad, and I guess I cracked it pretty hard on the rock. And I had this white sweater that was now just red. My head is gushing blood out of it. And he ended up picking me up by my hair and throwing me in the car, where he punched me in the head until we got around the corner to his mom's house, where he kept me until his cousin finally showed up maybe an hour later, because he knew that if I went to the hospital, what was going to happen? The police would come. That's domestic violence. It's not okay no matter what position you're in. No matter what you've done, no woman deserves that. No man deserves that. But finally his cousin did show up and took me out of there and took me to the hospital. I had promised my kids that morning that I would pick them up from school. My dad was supposed to drop me off, do a couple runs or whatever, and then come back and get me and go get the kids. Because they had stayed after for a thing after school or something. Or my mom was, I don't remember. Anyway, I was going to get my kids after school that day.
Yeah, you made a commitment to them.
And I wasn't going to make it. And I realized that when I got to the hospital. The cousin just dropped me off and left me. I remember when we were back at the apartment still, his mom was holding my head under the sink trying to figure out where the blood was coming from. And she said, how could you do this? You know how he is. And I don't know why that stands out to me so bad, but I can...
Like it was your fault.
Hear it and I can feel it even just now, 15, 16 years later. And I did not understand how somebody who loves you can do that. Of course, I know now that is not love. But I had to call my dad. And my dad... Most of us have had that loved one that gave us that look. That look of despair with they don't know if they'll ever see you alive again. I knew that look from my father all too well. Every time he dropped me off at where I was living, wherever I was living, I saw that look every time. And that day when my dad walked into that hospital and saw his daughter beat to death, I saw the look again. And by the grace of God, it was the last time I ever saw that look at his face. I ended up calling my mom. She got my kids. And I sat there while, they had to shave my head to put staples in it. The police came, the domestic violent people came. And I know that, and my dad never left my side. And I know AA did that for my dad.
Yeah.
I'm a parent to a girl about the age as I was then. Not quite, but almost. And I don't know if I've been sober long enough to sit there and take it like my dad did. I know my dad called his sponsor and said, I'm going to need you to go get the guns out of my house. And my dad was very dramatic. I don't think he ever would have done anything, but I don't know. But that was a Monday. They did the pictures. I was black and blue all over. I weighed probably 90 pounds soaking wet. We got done there. My dad took me to his house and he said, what are you going to do different? A friend of ours a good friend of my parents from the program came to the hospital. She was a nurse actually from hospice or somewhere. And of course I grew up knowing her. And she said, sometimes God just has to hit us upside the head before we wake up. So as of that night, I moved into my dad's little 3-room apartment. And with that being a Monday, the Jeff Token Club, I don't know if you ever went there.
Yeah, the old one.
Yeah, the one that's gone now. But the Monday night group in the middle of winter, the internationally famous Jeff group, was very full. I mean, that meeting would be packed wall to wall, just standing room only. And that, of course, was my first meeting.
Oh, was
I
it?
had just gotten my butt whooped by my boyfriend. I didn't have any clothes of my own. My twin brother actually happened to be living with my father at that time, too. Even though he's my twin brother, he's about a foot taller than I was and weighed about 75 more pounds than I did. And I had to wear his clothes. So I had on his jeans with a rope tied around him with a half-shaved head and a big old Nike t-shirt. And I still wanted to put makeup on. Like, that made a difference. I mean, some people are grateful to have...
That's a pretty fitting outfit to show up for your first meeting.
I know. Some people are real grateful. They have a picture of themselves when they got sober. I'm super grateful I do not. There's enough pictures that I'm glad social media wasn't around back then. All that. So I went to that meeting, and my parents had already divorced and all that. And they weren't, of course, on best of terms because it had just happened that year. And had my dad on one side, my mom on the other. And I don't remember who talked. I don't remember who shared. I don't remember nothing they read. And then when they got to the chips, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. Of course, I've been going to meetings my whole life. Every birthday my parents celebrated, I was there. And I'm like, I'm not getting a chip. Nope. I still was not convinced that I'm an alcoholic. Drug addict? Maybe. Alcoholic? No. I'm not like them, you know?
Yep.
But my dad shoved me out of my chair. So I got the white chip. And by the grace of a God, that's the only one I've had to get.
Wow.
I would love to sit here and say that sobriety's been so fun and just peachy and great. That'd be a lie. It'd be a whole lie. Sobriety just is awesome. But the days still suck sometimes. Life still gets yucky and ugly and sticky. And just because we quit drinking or using does not mean our isms go away.
Yep.
Because I promise you I can run through a life and tear it up just as good sober as I ever did drinking.
They might get sometimes somewhat magnified, because they get drowned in the fog of the dope and the booze. Yeah. And now I got to deal with it.
Now I got to deal with it head on, right? Yep. So then you avoid it even more and you almost drink over it. But luckily I have not. I've made plenty of life mistakes.
I heard a guy say something. They told me he was a one-chip wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that a few times.
Got one chip, so that's I didn't do that. That was not my path.
It's not a requirement.
I had a whole pile of white chips.
I think whatever takes you to get here is what matters.
I don't worry about it today.
Right. I know some people with 30-day sobriety sometimes have better sobriety than I do at 15 years on any given day, you know?
Yep.
I mean, I have a good, strong foundation, but we all mess up. We're all going to mess up. Doesn't matter if you're sober or not. Just don't drink that day. Tomorrow you got a better shot. Yeah, but my sobriety was pretty... I floated that pink cloud for the first year. Like, my husband says it like I had my cape on. I'm going to go save the world, you know? I moved into my dad's house in this 3-bedroom apartment, or 3-room apartment, and I'd never been happier in my whole life. Never felt more at ease, safe, because all my dirt was out on the table.
Right.
You know, all my trash was gone. I wasn't having to hide stuff every day and live life like that. It's hard to live your life like that.
It is. It's exhausting.
The constant struggle, not only of how to pay for your drinking, but how to cover your drinking and how to hide it from this person today and that person tomorrow, and the guilt, shame, and remorse you're feeling.
The emotional toll that comes with it.
Just beat you to death. So I floated that pink cloud for as long as I could. My dad ended up getting involved with a lady, which was fine, but that was my time to exit left. And I moved in with my mom for a little bit. She needed somebody to stay with my little brother. It just worked out. God always works things out.
Yep.
Stayed with her for a couple months while she was out of town. And got my own house again. And I remember calling my dad every month. Dad, I paid my electric bill. Dad, what's the sewage bill do? What do I do? Am I supposed to pay that? Does somebody else pay that? And I remember being so proud of myself for doing the stuff you're supposed to be doing anyway. And he'd say, what do you want, a medal for doing what you're supposed to be doing the whole time? My dad was one of them mean old-timers that would just tell you like it was. He didn't care that I was his daughter. He was just as mean to me in a very loving way.
Right, yeah.
But he drugged me to every meeting in the Louisville area. every day of the week. We were at one meeting or two meetings or four. But my dad saved my life.
Yeah.
Not as my dad, but as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, what a blessing.
He was responsible for me.
Really touches me.
When I didn't even have my hand out yet, you know. He was responsible. And, of course, he introduced me to tons of ladies. And I remember hearing the first lady that I could relate to. Her name's Betsy. And that was a life changer. There's been lots of those in the program. But, of course, you know, things can't always go smooth. My grandma got sick. My mom's mom got sick when I was about 9 months sober. I had been blessed with finding another job as a nurse. I was honest with them up front. This is what I've done. This is what I'm doing now. Please give me a chance. And they did. And I worked there for 5 years. And but they allowed me to work there. When my grandma got sick with pancreatic cancer, they allowed me to bring my grandma there to take care of her while she was sick.
Wow.
And when she ended up passing away at Norton's. But I got to be there with my mom when it happened. Complete opposite of my other grandma. And I believe that was an amends that I got to make to my dad's mom through my mom's mom.
Yeah.
And
to show up.
You can't have my drink. I mean, you can have my drink for that experience. You know what I mean? That if I'd have been drinking or using still, it never would have happened.
Right.
I wouldn't even have been working. So that happened. It was difficult and it was hard and I had to feel it and that sucked, but it was amazing at the same time. I remember everything about her funeral. I remember nothing of my other grandma's. Not just one song is all I could remember. And I got to be there with my mom, which was the best part. Like I said, we had gotten our own house. My kids had their own bedroom, which that was huge for me.
Yeah.
You know, just doing what I was supposed to be doing the whole time, but didn't. But now's my chance to raise these kids right and to make sure they live a life different than I ever did. To don't make the same choices that I did, you know. Plus, I was young and way cooler than most moms. But we lived in this house, just the three of us, and it was awesome. Then I met a man. He had like 3 days sober at the halfway house. So it was immediate, you know.
Yeah, love at first sight.
Love at first sight. So we dated for about 6 months. Then he moved in for about 6 months, and we got married. And then we got divorced 6 months later. I saw the other side of alcoholism. This time it was him using in my home with my children, and I stood up for me and my children for the very first time in my life. Not just standing up for them, but I stood up for myself.
Yeah.
You know, this is not acceptable. This is not going to happen in my house. This is not going to happen in my life. I'm not going down with you. And he had to go. And he did. And I don't know if he's sober today or not. I pray for the best for him. But it was a hard lesson to learn. It's so hard to see the other side of it and not be angry, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, when you get sobriety, when you finally get it and live it, you just want to go smack everybody in the head and give it to them too.
Yep.
You know, just like, wow. And he could quote you the big book. He knew so much of the big book. And I've known so many people like that that have died on their bathroom floor with a needle in their arm.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you can quote a big book. You got to live it.
Yep, you do.
And I know none of us are good at it every day. I know I fall short every day. But I have a God that can pick up my pieces and help me carry on the next day. So all that happened. At the same time I'm going through this divorce, I had gotten really sick. I got poisoned by bleach, actually, at the nursing home I was working at. We were cleaning down walls, and they used the wrong strength of bleach. So I ended up getting chemical bronchitis. No big deal. But they found a mass in my lung when I had gotten sick.
Oh, wow.
And I was supposed to have lung surgery 14 days after I kicked him out of my house. And I got real angry at God. Real angry at God. I was working with all these girls, you know, young in sobriety, have a bunch of sponsees that are young in sobriety, trying to do the next right thing, and brokenhearted and trying to carry on. And now this.
Yeah.
This is what I got
Really?
sober for. So I go down to the river to yell at God when I get mad at him. He's cool with it. We've talked about it.
I believe that's fair, too.
Right? We're down there, and I'm flipping through my big book, and I'm like, you better tell me something, because I'm about to go drink. I was about to throw it all away, because my heart was broken. I was hurt, and I was scared. And I don't know why drinking it wasn't the first thought that came to mind, but it was definitely there. And flipping through my big book, and it says working with others. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Why don't you work with me, God? Come on. And I know today that he was working with me with those girls that I sponsored. They saved my life, I have no doubt. But as I'm sitting there being mad at God, flipping through the big book looking for answers that I don't accept anyway, I hear somebody say, Angela. And I look over, and it's a guy that I'd known in the program. He was skin and bones. He'd been using. He had track marks all over him. And I'm like, what are you doing down here? And he said, what are you doing down here? And he was waiting to score or whatever, and they hadn't showed up. And he sat in my car, which I would never suggest to any woman to put a man using in their car in the evening. No, don't do that. But I know he was an angel that saved my life that day. And I just so happened to take him down to the token club and met up with a really good friend of mine, Chris, and my now husband, Randy, and passed him off to them, and they took him wherever. And I've seen him a couple times since then. I've actually thanked him for saving my life that day. And he's still out there in it, though. So you never know when you're carrying the message. Either you're drunk or you're sober. You never know, you know.
Yeah.
He was my angel that day.
A distraction, to somebody to help and divert you from.
Yeah. In an instant, I saw what was going to be me.
Yeah.
You know, that would be me if I made that other choice.
Yeah.
So I started dating this one over here, Mr. Randy, and had the lung surgery. Who happens to be sitting
here in the studio with us while sharing his energy with us while Angela tells her story. I like that. I always encourage people to bring people with them.
He could probably tell it better than I could. But the lung stuff ended up being okay. I ended up having a fungus growing in my lung that's caused from bird poop.
Really?
Yeah, it's real common. People that grow up on farms. I never grew up on a farm. Never lived around chickens. Not sure how I got it.
Yeah, I've heard some things about that though. People who have cleaned.
Yeah, it's called histoplasmosis.
Yeah.
But I ended up. They took it from my lung. I got on medicine. It's still there. It's whatever. So
really?
It worked out.
It's still there.
It's still there. The mass grew back because my insurance company didn't want to give me the medicine I needed as quick as they were supposed to. Which gave it time to grow back because you're unable. It's kind of like cancer. You don't know if you're getting all the spores out. And in the time, because it was a real expensive medicine, and the insurance company fought me for it, so the mass grew back within that amount of time. Yeah. So life went pretty good for quite a while. We ended up getting married, getting a house. My kids were given back to me the day I got sober. I kid you not. The day I got sober, I went to go see them at their grandpa's house, and he's like, "Oh, you're sober now? Here you go.
Yeah, take them.
Here you go. Take these kids." So I was thrust back into motherhood and had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to be a mother. I know I loved those kids with all my heart, but I did not know how to love those kids at all. I had to let the women in this program teach me how to be a mom, how to love those kids, how to show them love, but how not to be their best friend and be their mom. Because darn it, kids, when they get older, they just try to take advantage. I've got 2 great kids, though. But life was pretty good for a while. I did not face consequences when I was drinking, like going to jail, none of that. But whenever Angela takes God out of the equation and thinks that she's in control of things, bad stuff happens, even when she's not using. The housing market crash of 2008 affected our family pretty badly. My husband built houses. He was a framer for houses. Had a good, decent business for 15 years. When the housing market crash hit, his business went out. There just wasn't houses to build anymore.
Yep.
Like overnight, it seemed like. So he lost his he didn't have insurance. It was just a messy time. I had left the one nursing home, went to another one to work with a lady that I love dearly, but she was a DON at this other facility, so I went over there to help her out. And was real close with the doctor that worked there, and I decided it would be okay to write prescriptions for his blood pressure medicine. And she had wrote them for quite a while, like for about a year. But she didn't want to keep writing them because, he wasn't getting blood work done. He wasn't getting, checked by anybody. She was just refilling his blood pressure and his cholesterol medicine, which she could be liable if anything were to happen to him after a certain amount of time.
Right.
So I'm like, well, she'll never know. Well, I don't know how to fill out prescriptions appropriately. So when I took them to drop them off, I did. I stole her prescriptions and wrote them and didn't know how to do it correctly, apparently. Because when I went to pick them up, they're like, this is wrong. Then I realized they had called her to clarify it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so screwed. The next day at work, she didn't say anything. She acted normal. I'm like, okay, well, this is cool. Nothing going to happen. I was wrong. About 2 weeks later, something completely unrelated was going on a different floor of the nursing home. And a detective was called in about a patient's family. Had nothing to do with my situation. So while he just happened to be there, he saw the doctor, and she's like, by the way, I got this strange phone call about a person, Randy Chandler, that I've never seen before. And of course, he investigates, sees that I'm the one that dropped him off, and they call me into the office. I had actually been on vacation, and then when I got back, I got fired. But that's not all that happened. She was upset when she realized it was me that had done it for good reason. I stole from her, And I used to justify it and say, well, it wasn't narcotics. It wasn't anything like that. It doesn't matter. It's a felony. And they charged me as such because they called me into my DON's office, which her and I were really good friends. She loved me and supported me unconditionally through that. And my sponsor was also my boss. And she loved me and supported me through that the best she could from her position, And I met with the detective. I was honest with him about what had happened. He said, I understand, but it's not okay. You're a nurse. That's abusing your stuff. And he said, you're going to have to turn yourself into jail tomorrow. I'll let you go home, tell your family. You'll be in and out of jail pretty quickly. They'll just book you in and let you out. Be done and over with. Okay. I'd never been to jail before. I am terrified. Now I'm getting charged with 3 felonies. So.
Because it was 3 prescriptions?
Yes. Theft. One was theft, illegal conversion, or I don't remember what that one was. And then forgery. So they charged me with 3 different charges for all 3.
Wow. And this is 4 years sober?
Yeah. 6. Oh, no. I think I was around 6 years sober when that happened. 5-6 years sober. Yeah. So that happened. I did go to jail. I served 23 and a half hours in Louisville Metro. And you'd have thought I came out doing hard time.
Yeah.
If I knew now, or knew then what I know now, I signed a plea deal very easy. I wanted to own what I did. I wanted to be done with it. I wish I had done that a little differently, but I didn't, and it's okay. I was humiliated. I was embarrassed. I was real worried about that Crime Times paper that comes out. Real worried about that. So God took care of that. By the time I got out of jail, I was on every news channel. Nurse steals prescription pad. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was ugly. My dad just happened to not watch the news that day because he was at the hospital with my stepmother. So he missed it. Thank God. But yeah, God let me know that Crime Times was the least of my worries.
Yeah.
I was on, I think, Wave, WDRB, and WHAS. So now I'm a 32 fan because they're the only one that didn't air it. It must have just been a slow day that day. Slow news day. But I had a real hard time with that. Obviously, Kentucky would not allow me to be a nurse in Kentucky anymore, as I was a charged felon. And I pled guilty to felonies with a diversion program that it would be dismissed once I completed a probation program. They left out that I will always have, I didn't have to say I'm a convicted felon, but if it asks, have I pled guilty to a felony, I can't lie. I need to say yes. So it pretty much removed me from the nursing field, which is fine. I was actually given another chance here in Indiana. Kentucky took it. Indiana didn't.
That's interesting.
I worked again as a nurse at another nursing home. And I just was not feeling great about myself at all. In the same time period, my dad got real sick. He had been fighting COPD for probably 10 years. And he had chronic Crohn's disease.
Crohn's disease?
Yeah, with his digestive system.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been fighting with that and his COPD for years. He went into the hospital in November. None of us thought it would be the last time he'd go into the hospital. And at the same time, I had gotten a new sponsee that August named Gabby. And she won't care that I say her name. But when Gabby got sober, in December of that same year, she lost her 9-month-old daughter.
I know Gabby.
Yeah. And I was blessed enough to be her sponsor. I still am. And walking with her through the death of Gemma, and then she repaid me by walking through the death of my dad, just a couple months later.
Yeah.
Is what this program gives us.
Right.
Watching her stay spiritual, stay connected to God, stay connected to people, stay connected to AA, made me do the same thing. I know.
Yeah.
Through something that I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine losing a child.
No.
And she is still my hero today. And I don't know why I'm her sponsor, but but she's my hero. She we all make mistakes, and God knows her and I both have made plenty, and sometimes we might co-sign each other's, but but she saved me. And I don't think I'd be here without her.
Wow. Yeah.
And then
I've heard that story, and
it's
I
a
don't
pretty
know.
tough one, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the toughest ones I've listened to.
It was awful. It was awful. I had to be there just holding her hand through the funeral. And
she went to the same home group I did here in New Albany for quite some time.
At Northside?
Yeah.
Yep. She's an amazing person.
Yep.
Hope I can be like her one day.
It's interesting when these sponsor relationships evolve.
Yeah.
From like there's this little deal first. It seems like where you're like
you stay on.
They're not level. There's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
For a while, but as we travel this path, that from my experience anyway is that we become equals again.
Yeah.
And
it kind of levels out.
Yeah, it levels out, and we become friends.
Yeah.
And that friendship that blossoms. Touches me out.
Yeah.
Fog up a little bit talking about it.
Yeah.
Because it means so much to me. These guys that God has handed me.
Yeah.
To be my friends, to support me through the things that we go through, and support one another, and do this whole we thing together for real.
Yeah.
And like what you're talking about, that's real. That's real stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do this stuff.
Right.
Without that support around me, I don't know how. And I didn't have a clue how to walk through this with her. I had no experience with that. I just stood. I told her, I remember telling her over and over again, I'm not going to crowd you, but when you need me, I'm right here. I'll be standing right behind you. Yep.
Wherever you are, wherever you need me, I'll be right here. So when you turn around, just know I'll be there. And then when my dad passed away, she said the exact same thing to me. And I know that's a relationship that is only made through God, that God put me in her life at just the right moment, at just the right time. We found each other,
Right. Yep. Yeah, they're miracles is what I call them.
Yeah.
And I have a list of miracles that my sponsor had me start keeping.
Absolutely.
Of these things, because he said the way they pile up, you will forget them if you do not write them down.
Yeah. You start to forget those spiritual experiences.
Now and again, I'll share something with him, and he'll simply say, "Put that on the list."
Yep.
Add that
That's
to the list.
That's a good idea.
It's kind of like a long-term gratitude list in a sense, when I go back and look at it and look at, it really overwhelms me when I read it today.
Yeah.
Of the things that have happened to me as a result of
it's like that thing they say, when you get sober, if you tell them what you want to get out of sobriety, and then you look back and then you sell yourself way short.
Yeah. I lost my mom 13 months sober. After a real long, for 6 months of it, I was on home incarceration since to a year of home incarceration when I come in, and they let me off at 9 months. But a good piece of that mom was really, really sick, and I was on home incarceration, and I couldn't do, and at times I broke it because things happened. Dad would get her home, and she would get up and fall, and he couldn't get her up, and and I just had to, I would call him and just say, hey, I got to go, and I never did receive any consequences for those breaking those rules.
I believe that's God,
yeah, right. And then I ended up getting off of it, and I had the opportunity to make amends to my mother before she passed, and it was just like a month before, and it was and without the support of AA and my friends in recovery, they just propped me up. There's no way I could have done that without that help.
Absolutely.
And there's been a number of those kind of things that, like I said, we always something that sticks. Nobody promised me that it will be okay, right? But if I stay tight to this, I can be okay.
Exactly. My sponsor used to tell me, you cannot do anything alone. but we can all do it together.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. One
I
of my
love
favorite
that.
speakers says, I could never get sober, but we seem to be able to.
Right. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's the whole thing. This connection with because I have this men's group that's just super tight. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of us, and we had a home group meeting last night of 60 people that actually participated, and to have that many men actually active and actually come to stay late.
Right. That's big stuff for
everybody,
alcoholic and
it's
sobriety.
time to go home, I mean, you got
Right.
kids to take care of, my wife,
Yeah.
and whatever, need to go eat. Any number of excuses of people that to not stick around. But we're tight, and when somebody needs help, the men reach out and help. And it's just a miraculous thing, to watch that happen.
Yeah.
And watch lifting up people who are going through really, really hard things.
Bad stuff, yeah. Because just because we're sober, bad stuff still happens.
Yeah.
After my dad passed away, I made some really bad choices. Started gambling.
Started gambling?
Mm-hmm. On horses. Never did it a day of my life. I grew up with my dad watching the Derby and betting on horses from time to time. He'd put money on football games or whatever, and it was never a big deal for my dad. So I didn't think it'd be a big deal for me, but it was just another outlet. It was just another way for me to feel better about the crappiness that I felt inside.
Yeah.
I felt all this guilt, shame, and remorse about these charges that I caught, the shame that I brought on my family, which was just my perception.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that had gone on. My husband and I actually separated for a time because I cheated on him. And we both tried to live separate lives. Then we realized, hey, we're married. Let's try to work this out. So we did that. And that's only by the grace of God.
Yeah.
He is my everything. He is my best friend. I do not want to live this life without him. But above all, I cannot live this life without my sobriety and God. And my dad died January 25th, a year later. Or no, he died February 25th. A year later, on January 25th, I was diagnosed with cancer, with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I fought it for about a year and 3 months when they considered it gone. It was my son's 18th birthday when they said it was gone. And then 3 months later, it was back. I fought it for another year and a half, I guess. It wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't getting really better, but it wasn't getting worse. So after changing some stuff around to treat my histoplasmosis also, they were able to get a hold on it better. My doctor finally sat me down. He's like, look, this is the most recurrent cancer. You can keep fighting it. You can live your life in your home, away from people, which we both know as alcoholics, that's not a good place to be, in your own head. I got very sick in the head, which is, I think, what not triggered the gambling, which made me get sick in my head. Between the cancer, my dad, this gambling thing, I was on the verge of drinking or using. When you have cancer, they offer you stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And my doctor knew that I was an alcoholic, a drug addict back in the day. And he's like, it's been long enough. Doctors are real ignorant to it at some point. And when you have cancer, I get where they, come at it a different way. But I wasn't in pain. But I promise you there were times where I was going to justify being in pain,
Yeah, I wasn't in pain, but I wanted some relief.
Right, exactly. And I'm real thankful for the relationship that I have with my sponsor, with my support group, with my husband, that I'm able to stay honest about that. You know, when I hear a gambling commercial on something nowadays, and I tell my husband, this crossed my mind today because I have to treat it just like I have my alcoholism. Yeah. And made it through all that stuff. I still have the cancer, but it's just okay. I go to the doctor regularly. Wow. They check my blood. And now my heart is in the mix. It's going to try and kill me before my cancer does. So about 2 years ago, I was getting real dizzy episodes, like to the point where I'm falling down. And I thought it was blood pressure. I'm a nurse. I know what this stuff is.
Yeah, right.
So
self-diagnosed.
Exactly. I just need to take more blood pressure medicine or something. So I finally went to my doctor. They did like one of those Holter monitors where you wear it overnight. Mm-hmm. Sent me immediately to the immediate care when they got the readout on that. The immediate care ran an EKG and sent me immediately to the emergency room where they wouldn't even let my husband take me. They're like, no, you need to get in an ambulance. And what I have is called unstable ventricular tachycardia. And the top part of my heart doesn't work as well as the bottom. Or the top wants to beat faster than the bottom can push out. So my heart will not fill all the way up with blood before pushing it back out. And then I've dealt with that it's been about 2 years. I have an internal defibrillator now. And if anybody would have asked me before October 23rd if I was okay to die, I would have said yes. I've made my peace with this. It's all good. I'll get to dance with Jesus up there, whatever. And Gabby actually saved me again. I was sitting at home, had walked my dogs that morning, have a pit bull and a German Shepherd, so they walked me that morning. And I got back home. It was a day just like any other. I don't work for full time. I work part time at a restaurant. That's all my husband makes me do, so I can take care of myself. And it was a day like no other, or just like every other. And I just had a weird fuzzy feeling in my head. And then I remember, when you're coming out of a dream, like you're kind of awake, but you're kind of not, and you're like, what's going on? You don't really know. That's what I felt like. And I remember I couldn't catch my breath, and I called my husband, and I'm like, something's wrong. Just talk to me, get me through this panic attack. It's what I thought it was some kind of panic attack. And then I felt my chest right here where my defibrillator is, and it hurt. And I'm like, maybe I got shocked by my defibrillator. And while I just happened to be on the phone with him, it happened again. So while my husband is on the phone with me an hour away in Owensboro for work, he hears me go out again, and there's nothing he can do about it.
Oh, wow.
So I hear him saying my name, and I come back out of it again. This happens for a matter of like 3 or 4 hours before I'm smart enough to say somebody sent me to the hospital. But Gabby is a traveling nurse, so she was out, and I'm like, I can't remember if I told her I wasn't feeling good or if she just came by. I don't remember. But while she was there taking my blood pressure and checking me out, I had told her about what had been happening. And while she was there, I went out again. And by this point, I started having VTAC seizures, which is where my body's trying to reset everything. And it's just not able to. So long story short, I woke up the next day on a ventilator at Norton's Hospital. Wow. The last thing I remember was my son. He rode with me in the ambulance. And I remember they took me to Clark initially, and I remember sitting in this room, like kind of in it, kind of out of it, and I remember looking at my son, and I said, it's getting ready to happen again. Leave the room. And it happened again. And I remember like little clips of stuff, I guess, where I had opened my eyes over the next 24 hours before I woke up at Norton's. And at one point, I remember them peeling the defibrillator pads off my chest and me going back out. I remember my twin brother showing up and me grabbing his hand. But I wasn't breathing for myself. They had me on the ventilator. And we found out the next day or the following day that my defibrillator had shocked me 22 times.
Whoa.
Plus, they had to shock me with theirs also within a
because
very
it was
short.
detecting something
Yeah,
not
I was
right,
having
so it was
the extreme VTAC where my heart was stopping.
It should have been doing that, or was it something else?
No,
that's not really what the
it had been
defibrillator's
doing.
meant to do, right?
Yeah, that's why they make me. That's why they put it in, because this VTAC disease can cause that, your heart to just get overworked or underworked or whatever, and it just quits working. And that's what it saved my life.
Wow.
If I didn't have this defibrillator, I would not be here right now. The very first episode would have took me out. And knowing
Amazing.
that has changed everything. Like, I don't know, I think I would call it the hugest spiritual experience I've ever had. Like, I try not to get bothered by stuff anyway. Dealing with cancer and the effects of all that, mentally and physically and spiritually. Most of the stuff that we get mad about isn't worth it.
Yeah.
That day I would have died and been upset at my dog for barking at the neighbors or something,
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth it. We don't know when we're going to lose the people we love the most, I've told my kids, imagine if I didn't have that defibrillator, I would not be here. And the stuff that we've all been upset with each other about over here or over there over time, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I got sober to live happy, joyous, and free. But when I made the choice a year and a half ago to stop fighting cancer and just let it be, it can kill me in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it wants. I'm going to live my life. So me and my husband, we travel around to roller coasters and concerts. Last year we called it Coasters and Concerts, Chandler Coasters and Concerts 2019 or something. So we're trying to come up with a new hashtag for this year. But that's what we do. We go live our life together and have fun and live happy, joyous, and free.
Make the most out of it.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow
Right.
or 20 years from now.
That's a gift.
But I know I don't want to waste it
Right.
on anything that doesn't matter. Not that I never get upset about stupid stuff.
Right.
We all
Yep.
do.
Yep.
But I try really hard to pull myself out of it really fast. Because I know that I could be dead 5 minutes from now. Was that worth it? You
really
know?
land some day at a time living, that,
Right.
because you really are, it behooves us all really
Yeah.
to operate with that same way, because it is the truth. Even though I'm pretty healthy today, I am not guaranteed tomorrow.
Amen.
And that has actually been landed at your feet to some level where you feel that more deeply.
Yeah. And I had to struggle for about that first month. I was in the hospital about a week, and when I got home, it was a struggle just to not be afraid, to not be afraid of dying. I would feel a certain way, and I'd make him come sit with me in the living room and just sit there with me because it's scary. I never thought I would be scared of dying, but it's terrifying. I don't want to die today. I want to live. And my whole point in that was, in 2004 when I got sober, or before I got sober, I don't know how many nights I prayed that God just take me.
Yep.
Don't let me live another day in this madness. Just take me in my sleep like a true coward that we are, Let me overdose. Let me drink myself to death. Let me something. Just don't let me wake up. Everybody is better off without me here. And to know that today is the most selfish thought that a person can have. I mean, I fully get it. But nothing's worth that. I mean, like with the Kobe Bryant thing.
Yeah.
He kissed his wife, kids goodbye that morning. Never knew that something he'd been doing every single day was going to kill him. And we have a friend that, Star, she just passed away, 2 weeks ago. And she had met with her sponsor the night before. God love her. And, she never knew that was going to be the last time she was going to see Star, that any of us were going to see her.
Right. I didn't know her, but...
yeah, I'm sure you heard about it, yeah.
Yeah.
I worked with her for a while, and she was just a light that went out way too soon because of this disease.
Yeah, I never knew death like I know it since coming into recovery.
Yeah, it's sad
because people, it's just it's a weekly occurrence almost. It seems that I know somebody in my inside or directly, someplace in my perimeter.
Yeah.
That falls to this one way or another,
and for no reason.
Yep.
Other than they hadn't hit that miracle yet. Or they just didn't know how to accept it yet.
Yep. And also I think about how close I came to the same fate.
I know. Like I woke up in my car not knowing where I was at or how I got there, who I was with, or how I was going to get home. And God always saw fit to lead me back home safely. All of us, most of us. Yep.
Got me out of trouble and lessen consequences and some things, and I wonder back, about and it's fruitless thought, but that if I'd listened on the third DUI, or if I, but I did just like the book says, and it just always got worse and never better, and the consequences got deeper and deeper. And today I'm actually very grateful for those consequences.
Amen.
Because it finally jerked my tail tight enough that I would do something about it.
Yeah. And see, I'm thankful for my consequence, like the charges I caught, 6 years sober, saved my life. And I have no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that, and that's what I was saying, we can do the same screwed up crap sober that we can drinking. Except now we have to feel it a whole lot more.
Yeah. I had something hit me one day real hard on that same thing, on that doing stupid stuff sober. I had a garbage disposal on, and I stuck my hand in it.
Oh.
Sober, dead sober, and that was the first thing I thought, I am smarter than that, and all it did was nick my fingertips before I jerked back out.
Goodness.
So it didn't
take a finger off.
It knocked a little bit of skin loose in that.
But, that reminds me of like that Saw movie.
Yeah, that's what I think about, that I am fully capable of doing stupid stuff, stone cold sober, and working this program.
Yep.
It's I've witnessed resentment in people in sobriety, that looks a lot like using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know, a
absolutely.
resentment can be so strong that it will make people as sick as if they were. If it looks like a relapse sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Operating on some things. Yeah,
just like you said, you know, the quantity of your sobriety really doesn't matter if it's not quality. There's some people that have got 30, 40 years sober. I don't want anything they got.
Yep, and I see some people, you know, that, like you said earlier, that are fresh. Sometimes that fresh sobriety's...
It's that pink cloud. It's an amazing place to be. Like, let me ride it again for a while.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like sponsoring people so much, too, because I kind of get on the magic carpet and the pink cloud with them.
See, I'm blessed in the job that I have. I'm a server at a restaurant in Clarksville, and there's a lot of the halfway house girls that work there with me, and I get to see them change. There's a couple of them that I've watched them from newcomer to where they are now, and it's just a blessing. It's amazing and a blessing.
There's nothing in my life that fulfills me more than watching people's lights come on, and you know, and especially if I get to play, if God allows me to play a little part in that, and be an instrument in His hand to hand this to somebody else, and there's just I cannot put words.
It's watching a miracle
to have that happen, you know, and it's these kind of silly things like you know, parents come up and thank you, and it just blows my mind, you know, and I know it's not me, it's this. But I did get to do something in it. You know, I got to be that instrument, and golly, man, I do. Most of what I do in my life is to do that.
Yeah.
You know, recovery is my life. That's what we're doing here. You know, I sit down and spread this message this way. God's given me a lot of ways to participate in my recovery in very unique ways.
Yeah.
And I try to take full advantage of those gifts, because I think it would be a spitting in His face kind of thing.
Right, to not take them. Yeah.
To not take them. So you know, it's just an awesome thing to be a part of this recovery movement and help people.
Oh yeah, and my kids, like I said earlier, they would tell anybody. Both of them won their DARE essays when they were in 5th grade, because they were like, "My mommy's sober. I know the other side of drug addiction." And I'm so proud of them. They're 22 and 21 now, and
oh wow,
my son's in graduate school at U of L in music.
Cool. Yeah.
My daughter, she's working in the healthcare field, and she wants to do big things with her life. She's just trying to figure out her way right now. And
it's an interesting dynamic of this, you know, because it's really the powerlessness of like child raising in a way, right? I mean, look at what they're doing and then how they grew up, right? You know, and a lot of people would say that's not the way that's coming out. Now, you grew up in a family that was sober and went the other way. You know,
they grew up in a sick house. Well, for part of it.
Yeah, and so, like, you know, well, I hear people trying to like control their children's lives.
Yeah.
These kind of stories just show me, you know, like that probably child raising has imparted a firmer thing of a powerlessness.
Oh yeah.
Than any other thing I've done, you know, and you think that I'm going to manage these little beings.
Yeah, you try, but
I can put some guardrails and kind of do that, right? But there's no way that you can keep them inside. And
yeah, it's like a crib. You know, you prepare the crib for the baby. You put the bumper pads up around the crib so they don't knock their little head. But when they get old enough, they're going to climb out of that crib and fall and bust their head wide open.
Yeah,
and you just have to let them do it.
Yeah,
try to pad the ground a little bit, try to make it a little softer landing. And one of my daughter's friends, great kid, 20 years old, on his second DUI. And my husband even talked to him. He's like, you know, maybe we should think about what's going on here, buddy. That's not normal. Normal people can go their whole life, drink a little bit, and never get a DUI.
Yep.
He's like, I'm just passing on my experience, you know, because he had 2 before he was 18. And I pray he knows where we stand 19. On recovery, and I pray he finds his way. But
yeah, it does. I have some sponsees in their 20s and around that, and it's amazing to me because there was just no way. I got sober at 45.
Yeah, I was 23. He was 26.
Yeah, when he got sober. That's amazing. You know, to get turned around when you're that old, because it don't happen much. You got that Superman complex kind of thing going on, and you know, keep on doing what I'm doing.
Yeah,
it was that Captain America shirt. Is that what that is?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and now today we actually do get to kind of be superheroes in a way, you know.
Yep, we have our AA capes on.
Yeah.
Too bad we just can't save the world. They have to want it.
Yeah.
But it's there if you need it. Just put your hand out. And
Pirate.
GSO has phone numbers all over this country, no matter where you're at and whenever you're listening. You can look up General Service Office for AA, and you can find a meeting near you. They'll even hook you up with a person. like you, that's a drinker, and help you find your way.
Yep.
Just know that's an option available out there.
The power to change your life is within your reach, but you got to do a little reaching.
Yep. It ain't going to come to you.
And we are fortunate here. This is just, people say they can't make a meeting around this area.
I know, right. You're just not trying.
Yeah. There's rides available, places. I mean, you get on, you walk, bicycle. You can get there if you want to get there.
Yeah, Mickey talks about how there was literally 30 meetings when he got sober in 1966. And now there's over 3,000 in the Louisville metro area.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's probably far more than that aren't even, listed. Yeah, you're not trying if you can't make it to a meeting around here. But thank you for having me. My mind always goes blank when I'm done. Yep.
Yeah, I can always tell it too sitting here. Most people, there'll be a sigh, That's what'll happen. People will go. And I know that they've completed their story.
God has left the building.
Yeah. That's something I was taught in yoga, because you never really feel like you told it all, but we get to a little bit of expanded thing here. At the podium, it's a pretty compressed, really, time period that you definitely have to be able to. You kind of had to, especially as you go down the road, you almost have to pick what I must,
right.
God help me say tonight what I need to say.
And then be quiet. That's what my sponsor makes me add in that last part. And be quiet.
Yeah.
And then be quiet.
And that happens here, and we say, when we would share I went to yoga teacher training, and we would share in a similar kind of manner. It was a very parallel kind of thing going on where you would sit and share your stuff, and they said, "Are you complete in the moment?"
That's cool.
I like that.
That's a cool way to put it.
Not,
I have to use that.
Not saying that I'm done,
right?
But you feel like, okay, I've gotten out.
That's it.
I've gotten it out.
And then I think Randy used to tell me you have 3 talks. The one the one you want to give on your way there, the one you actually give, and then the one you give afterwards.
Yeah, the one you should.
I've gotten out of that over, a few years sober, but I used to do that a lot. I'm like, man, I left this part out.
Yeah. I fully believe when I do that prayer before I speak that what I said is what's supposed to be said. And
Absolutely.
The same thing with here. Sometimes we'll shut off the microphones and somebody will say, "Oh, I forgot." And I say, "Well, that wasn't supposed to be here today." That's God operating in us. And we just have to trust that that's it. And, want to come back sometime? I'm really willing to have you back. Because these stories change. And expand.
Absolutely.
And something happens, and miracles and recovery happen that I like to hear about. And you certainly are one. The things that you're living through and gone through as a result of this stuff, and doing it with grace and strength, and it's yet still the vulnerability that you show when you talk about it.
Yeah.
That is the what somebody else said, the jelly and the donut for what's going on here is to watch people do this thing. No matter what we go through, no matter what's happening, we have a power that we live with today that helps us walk through it no matter what.
Amen.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Randy, for coming. I'd like to get you on here and have you talk, because I'm expanding. I like the local flavor of it.
Get it set up for you.
Because we hear that stuff out there, and I was a big speaker tape junkie. Somebody's turned me on to it, and I've listened to a lot of them. They were really good for my early recovery, and I still do it because I was able to put something in my head when my head wanted to think about other things. Mm-hmm. I could brainwash myself at some level, and that was a good thing. It washed out and those other thoughts and put these thoughts in.
Put the AA in, get the nasty out.
Yep. And I like these things with local stories. We hear the ones on the big circuit speakers and all that, and get us regular people in here,
right?
Because our stories are just as fantastic, and have just
good,
me and Miracle in them as your circuit speakers out there on the internet. So I always close in the same way. If you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault. And as I always, thank you all for allowing me to participate in my recovery in this manner today. Peace out.
Everybody's walking on the left side, except for me, I'm strutting on the right. They stand around all day and curse the darkness. I individual.